Ahead of the new football season, get £20 in risk-free bets when you join SBK. That's money back in cash, your first £20 of losses. Well worth a go. Hello and welcome to episode 36 of Touchline Talk with Odds Changer. I'm missing my normal partner in crime today. In his absence, I have made a good substitution. I'm delighted to be joined by football reporter for the Daily Telegraph, Mike McGrath. He's the general man in the know and he's just fresh from reporting at the Euros with England. How you doing, Mike?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Pete. A little bit tired after the Euros, but I suppose there's a transfer window to look forward to until the Premier League starts.
Yeah, it's not long now until we get back into the action. As you said, Mike, transfer window now takes centre stage with everything that's gone on at the Euros. What was your general feelings about the Euros? Obviously, England disappointed in the end not to win the trophy, but I thought it was a great tournament for Gareth Southgate and the players.
Yeah, I think it was a great tournament overall, actually. Just some of the games were just brilliant. That when the Spain-Croatia one, that day where all the goals were going in, France, Switzerland, what day that was.
Yeah.
I think England were absolutely fantastic. I know it ended in a bit of disappointment, but what a tournament like some of those players had. Hopefully this will kind of whet their appetite for Qatar next year, but it's going to roll around quite soon.
Yeah, it's soon roll around. But yeah, I thought England did the nation proud in that. But unfortunately, some unsavoury incidents at the end of that final. And one person in particular, Marcus Rashford, along with Bukayo Saka and Jadon Sancho, unfortunately receiving racist messages. But it's good to see people have rallied around Marcus Rashford as well. And after his mural was defaced in Manchester as well, that has been repaired. And lots of goodwill messages to the Manchester United striker as well. But one of the stories that the Telegraph broke, Mike, in the last 24 hours is it seems like Marcus Rashford could miss the start of the Premier League season. Now he faces his shoulder operation. He's been carrying this for a long time now, and is it looking likely that he's going to be out of action until October?
Yeah, so my colleague James Ducker has been on top of this situation, and he broke the news last night that an operation. He broke the news about the operation being carried out and the length of time, which, like you say, might be even till October. I think at the end of last season, when United lost to Villarreal in the Europa League final, he did put out a statement saying, "I've been carrying an injury for a lot of the campaign." He wasn't specific, and the reporting has kind of shown how bad that was. And he said he was carrying this and it's affected his form, and maybe now is the right time to get that done so that he doesn't have any problems with it in the future, because it definitely seemed that his form was affected by it towards the back end of last season, and maybe even to the Euros as well, because he obviously was overtaken in the pecking order by Bukayo Saka and also Jadon Sancho. So yeah, it looks like he'll be out for a little bit.
Yeah, you got to admire him. He put his body on the line for club and country in the last season. As you said, he carried that shoulder problem for a while now. Obviously, he's had the negative headlines of everything that's surrounded him in this last 24, 48 hours. But I'm sure we'll see Marcus Rashford bounce back and not let these things affect him next season.
Yeah, I think so. So what a strange injury it was as well, when you can actually play and get through say an hour, which I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was saying that he had to manage him very carefully. He couldn't do 90 right up until the end of the season, where he was getting through 90, but before that he wasn't. It was one of those kind of nagging injuries which was hampering him. But he was still trying his best to get that trophy for United and securing their place in the top two, and he really did. Yeah, he put it in for club and country, and I think now, obviously they think now is the right time to repair it.
Yeah, I think the rest will do him good, and we'll see a fit and roaring Marcus Rashford to go for Manchester United, and that can only be good news for their fans and for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as well. Sticking with Manchester United, Mike, obviously they're going to be busy in the transfer market. They already have seemingly wrapped up a deal for Jadon Sancho. That one is in the bag, that long-term target. Finally sealed for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. What's your latest take on the events at Old Trafford? Who are they pursuing, and are they making progress on the likes of Rafael Varane, Eduardo Camavinga? What's your latest take?
Yeah, I think it's that they've moved really quickly to get Sancho sorted this summer. Maybe not quickly overall because it's taken over a year, but because he's been a long-term target. But he is. It looks like that everything's wrapped up for that, and then they'll move on to others. I see some difficulties in some of the transfers that they're going to do that they want to do. So. Trippier, for instance, at right back would be perfect for them to come in and be kind of supporting and competing with Aaron Wan-Bissaka. But I think Atletico would love to keep him and wouldn't want to let him go on the cheap. So there's problems there with Varane, which I think my paper did report the interest in quite early. But they've lost Sergio Ramos as well. I don't see them handing him over easily, even though that contract is running down. Camavinga as well. I thought they would always go for a younger midfielder rather than one in his peak years of like 26, 27, because they do have Scott McTominay and Fred and Paul Pogba as central midfielders, and Donny van der Beek. But obviously hope that he might come good. Camavinga really does fit the bill, but he's such a great talent that you can see Paris Saint-Germain competing for his signature. He's another one of those tricky contract situations in terms of length. I don't see much being straightforward for United. But they're definitely active, and they're definitely trying and definitely supporting Ole Gunnar Solskjaer after what they saw as progress last year.
Yeah, definite progress was made at Old Trafford last year. But somebody like a Varane, a World Cup winner, a serial Champions League winner, Mike, he would go in there and just really improve that team and probably bring that experience into the dressing room, which could help United get over the line and trying to win trophies. Do you think he's maybe the missing piece in the jigsaw? Somebody like Varane in alongside Harry Maguire?
I think he's been admired. Off the top of my head, I believe it was when Jose Mourinho wanted him. Before, I don't think it was as far back as Van Gaal, but Mourinho did want him, and cost was the issue, which I think which it probably will be again. It will be the main sticking point. But I did feel that they were slightly light in that department last season. I think Harry Maguire played. I think he played virtually every minute until that injury against Aston Villa, and I just felt that I felt at the back a partner for him would ease his workload a lot. Varane, I think I saw him have a terrible game against Manchester City 2 seasons ago. But there's obviously an excellent player in there, somebody who France have depended on and has been a Real Madrid player for many years. I think he's obviously a good player, and I actually think that he would be one that would adapt well to the Premier League, which you wouldn't say about every single player that can come from Spain. But I do think that he's the type of defender that would.
Yeah, proven player, as I said, a serial winner as well. Could only improve that Manchester United defence as well. United are obviously trying to build a squad capable of challenging for the Premier League title. What about outside Old Trafford, Mike? What are you hearing on Paul Pogba? We wouldn't have a transfer window without speculation over his future. Still long-term doubts whether he will sign a new contract or not at Old Trafford. Obviously, Jesse Lingard has returned after a successful loan spell as well at West Ham. What does his future lie? And also talk of maybe Anthony Martial being sacrificed this summer as well, if United are to bring in a new striker. Do you expect many departures at Old Trafford this summer?
It's funny, Manchester United, they're not really the type of club that players want to walk away from easily. You normally get thrown out rather than want to leave. And they've got some tricky situations with some of those players that you mentioned. Martial, I'm not aware of any departures for Anthony Martial. With Pogba, what I've been told is that he's had talks about his future, and he then went away to the Euros, and they'll talk again before the start of the season. I personally, this is only my view rather than on information. I wouldn't want to see that type of player go for free, but that might be out of Manchester United's hands if Paul Pogba doesn't want to sign a new contract. And I think with Jesse Lingard as well, I think that there is a certain degree of willingness for him to stay at Manchester United actually, rather than leave for free in a year or be sold. And being loaned out in your final year is very, very rare for a Premier League asset. I can't imagine that suits Manchester United as well, basically giving him to somebody else for a year and then losing him for free. So I think there's some decisions to be made there with those players.
Yeah, it's going to be a big summer ahead for Manchester United, ins and outs, as you said. And Paul Pogba, he's done it before at Manchester United. He's run down his contract and left on a free. It'd be a massive blow for United if he was to leave on a free transfer. But he is looking big money. I think maybe the highest earner at the club if he is to sign that new contract, Mike, and that causes its own problems.
Yeah, I think that it's. He's given them his absolute peak years during a time of transition for the club, really, and they're still going through that, even though they have progressed. I think that he would. I think with those French players around him, he can look like a different player as well. It's a strange one, but yet, in my opinion, he's probably not been the match winner for United as many times as he would have liked. I think he's still an asset for United, and with those type of assets, I don't think you really want to leave them, let them go for a free transfer.
Yeah, let's see what happens this summer with the future of Paul Pogba. I'm sure he will be in the headlines as normal. Across the other side of Manchester, Mike, Manchester City, obviously we're expecting them to be making a few moves in the transfer window. What are the champions planning to do? We all know that they're interested in Harry Kane, his continued speculation over his future at Tottenham, and also Jack Grealish seems to be a top target for Pep Guardiola's men as well. You would expect maybe a bit of movement on these two transfer targets now the Euros are finished?
Yeah, I think now all eyes are on the transfer market after the Euros. With City, what I'm told with the Kane deal is that it's going to be so difficult for Spurs to let go of him at this stage, which we've reported in the Daily Telegraph before, that at this stage Daniel Levy has not got any intention of letting him go. So it's going to take something pretty dramatic for that to change, which obviously can happen.
Yep.
I think the Jack Grealish one might be a more straightforward deal to get done, and I think he would slot into that team that squad very nicely, because Pep Guardiola would surely rotate those forward players, and you would be saying at this stage it would probably break the Premier League record for a player bought by a Premier League club, which is Paul Pogba.
Yeah,
it could go as high as £100 million for a player who's really enhanced his reputation at the Euros, even though he came off the bench mainly, and also last season. So I'd see those two that you mentioned, I think would be the ones that City are looking at. Less so a defensive midfielder now. Fernandinho has committed his future for another season.
Yeah, left back's probably another target for Manchester City long term, maybe to bring in somebody to sort that problematic position that it has been for Pep Guardiola's side as well. Any other outs maybe at Manchester City? I know you were all across the story of maybe Bernardo Silva looking out at City. Is there a real possibility that could happen?
Yeah, I think that's the problem with the left back and with Bernardo Silva, I think, is the market, and to have somebody to take the player and basically take over the contract and start a new contract on those terms is going to be really, really difficult, which is why somebody like Benjamin Mendy, who's been in and out of the team, I don't think it's straightforward to just find any club who needs a left back position filled for him to go. With Bernardo Silva as well, there would be, I'm sure that there would be clubs looking at him, but getting a package together is going to be really difficult. I think that's going to be the main problems for Manchester City in getting out, because we've heard mainly from other clubs who are maybe looking at deals. Somebody like Gabriel Jesus would be included in a swap deal, but whether Gabriel Jesus would want to move himself is another thing altogether.
Exactly, and if they don't get Harry Kane or another striker, you can't imagine them letting Gabriel Jesus leave as well. So big decisions ahead for Pep Guardiola, but Manchester City still probably going to be the team to beat next season. One team that will be looking to beat them next season is Chelsea, and obviously they're still being linked with a big money move for Erling Haaland, who's probably going to be the biggest transfer target in this transfer window for the elite clubs in Europe as well. It seems Roman Abramovich is really driving this one himself. Mike, he really wants to try and get this deal done for the Dortmund hitman. Some people have described it as mission impossible to sign him this summer. What's your take on this one? Is there any chance that we could see Haaland in a Chelsea shirt this season?
Yeah, I think my colleague Matt Law has reported about the interest in Haaland, which is genuine, and I don't think they're by any stretch of the imagination the only team in Europe who would gladly have him. I think the interesting part with Haaland is that he could be next season with the release clause will be so much more cheaper. We've seen Sancho's move as accelerated with under cheaper terms a year on from last season. That's my take on it, is that I would think that next season would be the right time maybe for clubs to move for him. But strange things can happen at the end of the window. We could see bids being made, and you never know. If any club puts in, say, a bid £30 million more than what his release clause is next year, if they do that this season, with that money on the table, clubs can react in strange ways. So you never know whether a late bid could get him to the Premier League. At the moment, I think it's just so tempting to see it pan out into 2022 when there'll be a much cheaper fight for him.
Yeah, and he'll have a lot more clubs that will be able to afford him next summer as well, Mike. I'm sure he maybe has his heart set on a move to Real Madrid. Real Madrid might not be able to afford any deal from this summer, so they're maybe waiting to see and capitalise on that release clause as well. But yeah, he's going to be one of the most sought-after players in the world, and I'm sure this one will go on, and we'll have a major transfer saga surrounding the future of Erling Haaland. We all know Barcelona's financial problems. They're not able to register their new signings so far because they've exceeded their salary cap as well, and even Lionel Messi hasn't signed his new contract, which has been on the table as well at Barcelona. So another potential casualty of Barcelona's financial woes could be Philippe Coutinho, the ex-Liverpool playmaker, seemingly could be available for as little as £20 million this summer, Mike. That would be a bargain. I know he's had his problems probably over the last 12 to 18 months when he was out on loan at Bayern Munich. He had a few injury problems last year, but on his day, still a world-class performer. He's been linked with a return to the Premier League. There's been talk of Leicester, also maybe going back to Liverpool, and maybe a potential move to Arsenal as well. What's your latest take on Philippe Coutinho and his future?
Yeah, I think clubs have looked at him, taking him on loan. I think that what people would really look at is the fact that in the last few years, really, he hasn't been a match-winning player for the clubs that he's been at, compared to others in the team. And like you say, he can do it on his day. We all remember the player that went from Liverpool to Barcelona, who was winning matches at Anfield for his club. And I think that it's a big investment, even to go on loan to cover his wages for a club. I still think that he's perceived as a risk for one of the Champions League teams to put that money out for him for a season, or to take in a £20 million deal. Maybe one of the Europa League teams might take a chance on him and say, we can invest in him, and he might be able to drag us up into the top four.
Yeah, obviously Brendan Rodgers knows him from his time at Liverpool when he signed him from Inter Milan all those years ago. So there's an obvious link there that maybe Leicester could be interested. Also, we all know the links that Keith Jarachbin, his agent, has with Arsenal. So that one might fit as well. A perfect replacement for Martin Odegaard, who seems like he's not going to return to the Emirates next season after a successful spell on loan. Do you see Arsenal maybe being a good fit for Coutinho?
I think, like I said earlier, yeah, that team looking to kind of get back into that upper echelon might be just perfect for him, because if he's a hungry enough player to show that he can still do it at the very highest level, and Arsenal are just not, unfortunately, they're just not a team at the moment that's going to attract that very highest caliber of players. So Coutinho, who's had a quiet few years, would fit the bill. Getting a deal done might not be the easiest thing to do, but I think that it's that level of club for him would definitely be what I'd be looking at if I was him. Maybe in a similar way to James Rodriguez going to Everton.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a busy summer for Arsenal. A lot of reinforcements needed for Mikel Arteta's side this season. They've already brought in one in Nuno Tavares, and I expect plenty more new faces to come in through the doors at the Emirates. Moving across North London to Tottenham, a story that's been broken on the Telegraph, Mike, as well, is also their interest in Southampton striker Danny Ings. They see Ings potentially forming a partnership with Harry Kane up front, the two of them playing in a partnership, which I don't think many people maybe expected Spurs to do, but Nuno seemingly does like to play two up front next season for Spurs. That's the early indications. We all know Danny Ings, he's turned down a new contract offer from Southampton, entering the final year of his contract at St Mary's. You got to be thinking Southampton will be looking to cash in on him rather than risk allowing him to run down his contract and leave on a free. So do you think Spurs is a real possibility?
I think that Spurs is a possibility, as would other big clubs in the Premier League. I think Danny Ings' reputation I think he's 29 years old, and just technique-wise, finishing-wise, he's just very, very highly rated amongst the top teams in the Premier League, particularly with somebody who's got a year left on his contract and is ambitious to prove himself, maybe at a Champions League team or to play in Europe anyway. So I don't think Spurs would be the only ones looking at him. I do think that it fits with Spurs as well, though, just the way that Harry Kane has been dropping deep for England and for Spurs last year, creating as many goals as anybody in the Premier League. To have a number 9 play with him as well, I think would definitely suit. And Danny Ings, I think, like I say, is technique-wise, he's very, very highly rated. And he's, as reported, he's not signed his new contract that's been on the table. So Southampton will have to have a fairly big decision to make, I imagine, when the bids come in.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one for Southampton. They don't want to really lose their talisman, but as a business side of things, you're going to be thinking, we'll get as much money as we can if Danny Ings is steadfast in his decision not to sign a new contract as well. But for Danny Ings, Mike, as you said, this is probably his last chance to go to a top club in England or elsewhere. He had that chance at Liverpool, but unfortunately was interrupted by injury. So he'll be thinking, this is my last opportunity to go to a club, maybe to challenge for trophies and to play in Europe on a consistent basis. Yeah,
it suits him with his contract situation as well. I think earlier in his career he ran down his deal, so he's used to that situation. And like you say, it's at his age, it might be his last opportunity to get to that level. But apart from those injuries, he's been consistent throughout his career. And he's one of those. Yeah, he is one of those which clubs do look at as extremely good value. And I would definitely expect official bids to be put in between now and the end of the window.
Yeah, Southampton are going to have their resolve tested, I'm sure, maybe by Spurs and by other clubs. The likes of Manchester City have previously showed an interest in him, as have Manchester United. So, yeah, big summer ahead for Danny Ings and for Southampton. As we said, it's already been a big summer with the Euros. It's going to get bigger now with the transfer window expected to get into full swing in the next couple of weeks. Now this season is drawing ever closer. Thank you for joining us this week, Mike. We'll be back next week on Touchline Talk for more transfers and insight.